Welcome, chosen ones. The system wasn't made for you. It was made to control you, to break you, to convince you that you're powerless. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. You were never meant to fit into their game. You were chosen, hand-picked, to rise above it and tear it down. They stacked the odds against you because they saw what you carry. A strength they can't replicate, a vision they can't understand, and a resolve they can't break. You're not here by accident. The struggles you faced, the rejection, the isolation, it's all been preparing you for this moment. You were built differently for a reason, and God anointed you to see through the lies and create something better. You're not just surviving their system, you're here to rewrite it. This isn't the time to doubt yourself. Watch this video and let it remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. It's time to step into your purpose and crush what was meant to crush you. Now let's get started. Number 10. They rigged the game knowing you'd play it better. The system was never just about keeping you out. It was built as a trap, a carefully constructed maze designed to test how far they could push you before you broke. They calculated every move, stacking the odds against you, creating obstacles that seemed insurmountable, and making you question your own worth. But here's what they didn't account for. You were never meant to play by their rules in the first place. They expected you to fold under pressure, to give in when the weight became too heavy. But instead, you adapted. You didn't just survive, you evolved. The harder they tried to contain you, the more resourceful you became. They thought they were testing your limits, but in truth, they were sharpening your instincts, making you see through the cracks in their system and forcing you to innovate in ways they couldn't predict. Your strength isn't in fighting the game, it's in transcending it. Where others see walls, you see weak points. Where they enforce rules, you create strategies that render those rules meaningless. The system was built to trap ordinary people in an endless cycle of fear and compliance, but you've stepped outside of that. You've realized that the game only has power as long as you believe in it. And once you stop believing, once you start thinking beyond the game, it collapses under its own weight. You're not here to survive their system. You're here to outgrow it. Every move you make isn't just resistance. It's a masterclass in redefinition. They tried to rig the game, but all they did was prepare you to crush it in ways they never saw coming. You don't just rewrite the rules, you make their entire system irrelevant. Number 9. The anointing isn't a blessing, it's a weapon. The truth about being chosen is that it's not about comfort, recognition, or basking in glory. It's a call to battle. Your anointing isn't a warm embrace. It's a weapon crafted for precision and built to endure. It wasn't given to make life easier, but to make you sharper, more unshakable, and ready to face what others can't. You weren't chosen to tiptoe around the truth or to make people feel comfortable. You were chosen because you can see through the facade and cut straight to the heart of what's wrong. This isn't a role for the faint of heart. Being anointed means stepping into chaos and knowing that you're equipped to dismantle it piece by piece. It's messy. It's exhausting. And sometimes it feels like you're fighting alone. But that's what makes the anointing so powerful. It thrives in the trenches where real change begins. The lies and deception of this world weren't meant to withstand someone like you, someone who isn't afraid to wield their purpose like a blade and carve through the illusions that keep others trapped. This isn't about playing nice or seeking approval. If you're chosen, you'll realize quickly that the work is relentless and often thankless. But the fortress you're tearing down wasn't built in a day, and it won't fall overnight. Each brick you remove weakens it, exposes it, and eventually collapses it completely. God didn't choose you because you fit the mold. He chose you because you break it. You are the disruption, the force that topples what was never meant to stand. Your anointing is more than a gift. It's a tool with one purpose, to destroy what holds people captive and pave the way for something better. Number 8. They underestimated the one thing they can't control. They can control the systems you operate in, rig the rules, dictate the outcomes, and limit the opportunities you're allowed to have. They can try to box you in with labels, distractions, and false narratives designed to keep you compliant. But there's one thing they can't touch: your mind. That's where their power ends. A free mind is their greatest threat. They know that once your thinking expands beyond their control, their entire system begins to crumble. Your anointing sharpens your perception, allowing you to see through the smoke and mirrors. It's like a spotlight on the cracks in their carefully constructed illusion. What they sold to others as unshakable truth, you now recognize as a fragile web of lies barely holding itself together. And here's the thing: they don't know what to do with someone who refuses to buy into their narrative. Their control depends on you believing in the limits they set. But when your mind is free, those limits disappear. You no longer see a system to navigate, you see a lie to dismantle. Once you spot the lie, it collapses under its own weight. You don't even need to fight it directly. Lies can't hold themselves up when exposed. And that's why they fear you. They underestimated the power of a mind that questions, that refuses to accept surface-level truths. They built their system on the assumption that everyone would follow blindly, but your clarity changes everything. Your mind is your weapon, and it's untouchable. While they scramble to patch up the cracks, you've already moved past their game, working at a level they can't see, think, or control. That's the freedom they'll never understand, and the one thing they can't take from you. Number 7. Your silence is louder than their loudest threats. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's a force they can't interpret, and that terrifies them. They're used to noise, arguments, compliance, resistance they can predict and control. But when you refuse to engage, to react on their terms, it leaves them unsettled. They realize you're not just ignoring them, you're observing, calculating, and aligning with something far greater than their shallow attempts at manipulation. For a chosen one, silence isn't surrender. It's a strategic withdrawal from their chaos, a deliberate refusal to feed their system of control. When you stop playing their game, they lose the ability to measure or predict you. That silence, that pause, speaks volumes. It tells them you see through the illusion, and it forces them to confront their own weakness. They thrive on reactions, on keeping you distracted and off balance. But silence? Silence signals that you're operating at a different level, beyond their reach. It's a quiet declaration of independence, a sign that you're no longer bound by their expectations or rules. They sense that your stillness is not passivity. It's power in its purest form. Your silence carries weight because they know it's not aimless. They feel the presence of something they can't control, a deeper alignment with your purpose, your anointing, and a force they'll never understand. It's not the absence of action, it's the gathering of momentum. They can't shake it, can't diminish it, and certainly can't match it. When a chosen one goes silent, the loudest threats become meaningless. They know you're preparing to move in ways they can't anticipate, and that realization is their deepest fear. Your silence doesn't just unsettle them, it dismantles their confidence piece by piece. Number 6, God didn't anoint you for comfort. He anointed you for chaos. Being chosen isn't about walking an easy path or basking in peace. It's about stepping into chaos fully prepared to dismantle it. God didn't anoint you for comfort or complacency. He anointed you because he knew you could handle the storm. Comfort doesn't create change makers, and it certainly doesn't break systems. You weren't built for ease, you were built for impact. The system thrives on chaos, confusion, and control, designed to keep everyone too overwhelmed to question or resist. But you don't just endure the fire, you thrive in it. Where others see chaos as destruction, you see it as opportunity. The mess is where you find your power. You weren't chosen to avoid the battle. You were chosen because you are the battle, the force that turns the system's own chaos against itself. You're not here to play by their rules or to make things comfortable for anyone. Your presence disrupts their carefully crafted illusion of order. They rely on fear to keep people in line. But fear doesn't control you, it fuels you. That's why you're dangerous to them. You don't shy away from the chaos. You step into it with clarity, purpose, and the unshakable understanding that you were made for this. God's anointing isn't soft or gentle, it's relentless. It's what gives you the strength to confront what others can't and to tear down what was never meant to stand. You're not here to escape the storm. You are the storm. The system may be chaos, but it will never outmatch the fire within you. You were chosen to consume it, to dismantle it, and to rebuild something greater in its place. Comfort is not your calling. Transformation is. Number 5. They built the system to enslave, but you turned it into your forge. The system wasn't just built to control you. It was engineered to enslave you, to strip you of your will, your identity, and your strength. Every rule they wrote, every obstacle they placed, was meant to grind you down until you became just another cog in their machine. But they didn't anticipate one thing. Instead of breaking you, it transformed you. What was designed as a weapon against you has become the forge that shaped you into something unbreakable. Every unfair rule that boxed you in taught you how to think beyond their limits. Every trap they laid to ensnare you only sharpened your instincts, making you see through their schemes and maneuver in ways they couldn't predict. Every attempt to crush you gave you the resilience to withstand more than they thought possible. What they built to diminish you ended up elevating you, turning their control into your crucible. They underestimated the power of resistance to create transformation. The pressure meant to collapse you has forged you into someone they can't control, someone who thrives in adversity. They thought the system would define you, but instead you've used it as a training ground, a place to refine your vision, your strength, and your purpose. You're no longer a victim of their system. You've turned it into something they can't touch, something that works for you instead of against you. What was supposed to enslave you has become the very thing that equipped you to rise above it. They built their system as a cage, but you've turned it into your proving ground. Now you're stronger, sharper, and unshakable, and they have no idea how to stop what they've unintentionally created. Number 4. They mocked you, thinking it would cripple you. It only made you untouchable. They laughed, dismissed, and tried to break you with their words, thinking ridicule would cripple your spirit. That was their first and most fatal mistake. They didn't understand the nature of a chosen one. What others see as rejection, you transform into fuel. Every sneer, every attempt to discredit you only added to your strength. They tried to bury you under their mockery, but instead you grew into something wild, uncontainable, and untouchable. For chosen ones, rejection isn't a setback, it's a catalyst. When they mocked you, they expected silence or retreat. Instead, they unknowingly gave you this space to evolve. Their ridicule didn't weaken you, it freed you from the need for validation. And when you stop seeking approval, you become unstoppable. Their laughter wasn't a wall. It was a doorway into your own untamed potential. They underestimated the power of resilience. They thought their words could define you, but all they did was reveal their own limits. While they mocked, you learned. While they dismissed you, you grew. They poured their energy into tearing you down, and in doing so, exposed their own weakness. You don't just survive their rejection, you thrive in it. Now, their ridicule can't touch you because you've become something they can't even comprehend. Their attempts to belittle you were supposed to break your foundation, but instead they fortified it. What they tried to use as a weapon became your greatest ally. They thought they were burying you, but they were only planting you deeper into your purpose. And here's the irony. The very thing they tried to use to stop you has made you untouchable. Their words, they're just echoes now. You've risen far beyond the reach of their mockery. Number 3, you don't just defy the system, you rewrite its DNA. Defying the system isn't your end goal, it's just the first step. The anointing you carry isn't about meaningless rebellion or chaos for its own sake. It's a divine blueprint, a design for a reality so much higher, so much greater, that the existing system cannot coexist with it. You weren't chosen simply to tear things down. You were chosen to replace them with something eternal, something unshakable. The system thrives on temporary fixes, shallow solutions, and illusions of control. It's built to serve itself, not the people trapped within it. But your anointing sees past all that. You don't just recognize the flaws, you see the possibilities. You're not here to play within the system's rules, and you're not even here to break them. You're here to rewrite the very DNA of how things operate, shifting it from something built on manipulation and fear to something grounded in truth and permanence. The system fears you because it knows it cannot adapt to what you represent. It's designed to suppress change, but your purpose is change itself. You move with precision, guided by something bigger than ambition or rebellion. You dismantle not just the surface structure, but the very foundation, the principles that hold it together. And in its place, you construct something that can't be shaken, something rooted in eternal values the system was never meant to understand. This is why your anointing matters. It's not random or accidental, it's intentional, and it's powerful. You're not here to leave things as they are. You're here to create a higher reality, one that renders the old system obsolete. You're not just a disruptor. You're a builder, crafting something timeless out of the ruins. That's the kind of power the system can never contain. Number 2, the system fears you because it knows you see its endgame. The system fears you because it knows you see its endgame. You don't just see the cracks. You see the entire structure crumbling in slow motion. They've built something designed to outlast, to maintain control, and to ensure that power stays in their hands. But what they didn't account for is that you aren't playing by their rules. You're beyond their grasp, beyond their manipulation. You've already envisioned the collapse, piece by piece. While they focus on maintaining their grip, you're 10 steps ahead, navigating through the inevitable unraveling of a system built on deception. They can manipulate actions, suppress voices, and twist narratives, but they can't stop someone who sees beyond the surface, who understands that the foundation of their power is fragile and artificial. The system thrives on control, on fear, on the illusion that it's indestructible. Yet you operate in a different space, one where you dismantle its structures with clarity and purpose. Your vision isn't blurred by their distractions. You're aware of the bigger picture, the future, where their control no longer has a place. What terrifies them the most is that you're not just aware, you're moving toward a future they can't predict or manipulate. You're shifting the very dynamics of power, turning what was once unassailable into something broken and powerless. They thought their structures would withstand anything, but you've proven they were built on a foundation of sand, waiting to fall as soon as you've exposed the truth. You don't just challenge the system, you lead it toward its own end, and they can feel it, even if they can't articulate it. The system may try to maintain its grip, but its days are numbered, because you've already seen what's coming and there's no stopping it. Number 1, they trained you without realizing it. They thought they were holding you back, stacking obstacle after obstacle to prevent your progress. What they failed to realize is that every rejection, every closed door, and every challenge became your training ground. While they worked to suppress you, you were quietly sharpening your skills, learning their tactics and preparing for the moment when their strategies would no longer serve them. You've become a master at their game, not because you conform to it, but because you've studied it from the inside out. Where they thought they were limiting your growth, they were actually creating an opportunity for you to outsmart them. Every move they made to control you has backfired, because you've turned their own playbook against them. Their systems were designed to manipulate, deceive, and dominate, but you've adapted. You've learned to see through the illusions they've built, exposing the cracks they never intended anyone to notice. What they thought would break you has only made you stronger, more strategic, and more capable of dismantling the very structures they've built to secure their power. They thought they were isolating you, but instead they were preparing you to rise. They thought they were outsmarting you, but in reality, they were training you to outmaneuver them. Now, you don't just understand their game, you control it. The very system they created has become your weapon, wielded against their own oppression. You've turned their strategies into your greatest advantage. They set traps and you've learned how to dismantle them. They designed walls and you've turned them into stepping stones. What they thought would keep you down has elevated you to a place where their control no longer matters. In conclusion, you are the chosen one because you weren't meant to fit into the system they built to control. They created something designed to suppress, to manipulate, and to break down those who dare to challenge it. But here's the truth. They underestimated you. They underestimated the power of a mind that refuses to be confined, a spirit that refuses to be broken, and a soul anointed to shatter every limitation they set. Your journey isn't about seeking comfort or recognition, it's about purpose. God didn't anoint you to simply coexist with a broken system. He chose you to dismantle it. Every obstacle, every unfair rule, and every attempt to stifle your growth was never meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. You've been sharpened in the fire of injustice and built stronger with each challenge thrown your way. The world may try to box you in, but you were made to break through. Your anointing is a weapon, not a shield. It empowers you to see beyond what they've created, to challenge the lies they've perpetuated, and to rebuild with something far greater, a truth rooted in purpose, freedom, and authenticity. So don't be afraid of the chaos or the resistance. You've been chosen for this. Trust in the journey, embrace the process, and continue to rise. You are destined to crush what they built, and in doing so, create something far greater. God bless.